Harihi Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yo antah pravishya mama vacha imam prashuptam sanjeevayati akila shakti darasvadamna anyam shtahasta charana shravanatvagadin pranam namo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam lasatu shrivadanandati yuktendurno hridambare yadvachaschandrika swanta santapam vinikrintati पदवाक्य प्रमाण ज्ञान प्रणम्य शिरसा गुरून् व्याकरिष्ये यथा भूतं विष्णु तत्व विनिर्णयम्. So, good afternoon, everyone. We make our onward journey in Katha Upanishad. Today is part 7 in a series that is going to be, I would guess, about 20 lectures to cover Katha Upanishad in all its glory. So, we are less than halfway through the Katha Upanishad. But the plot is getting very interesting. So let me just briefly remind you as to what we have done so far. So this slide, we have done all these verses. Okay, just a quick recap. So Uddalaka Aruni was doing Vishwajit Yajna, and he was giving old and decrepit cows, useless cows, to his to the people who have joined his ashrama. Nachiketa is not happy looking at this, and he says, what benefit is my dad going to get by giving me useless cows? If he gives me to one of the Brahmanas, at least I will go and serve them in their house, and in that process, my dad will get some punya and will be able to Swargaloka. By the act of giving useless cows, he's not going to make his way to Swargaloka, but actually he's going to go to Naraka. So maybe my dad should give me to a Brahmana. So he asks his dad, he prompts him 3 times. And as you know, the dad loses his fuse and he gets angry and he says, Mrutyave tva dadamiti. So our man then Nachiketa, the vision for Nachiketa is he sheds his gross body, and in his subtle body, he makes his journey towards Yamaloka. And as he goes, there are some deep philosophies where Yamadutas show him what is happening in the Yamaloka. And he also thinks like all other souls, I will also go to Yamaloka. There is nothing new here. From eternal times, Jivas, when they spend their time in Mrityuloka, they're going to die one day and then they're going to make this journey to Yamaloka. So I will join this queue and go. But my only concern is, what use am I going to be Yama? I'm not a Yamaduta. I'm not going to become an Yamaduta. I don't have capacity to become a Yamaduta. So what use am I to Yama? If only my dad had given me to some person in Mrityuloka, I would have been some use. So that is his regret, but he goes to Yamaloka and he waits there for 3 days, 3 nights. And finally, Yama makes his darshana, gives his darshana to Nachiketa, and he is very impressed with the boy's determination to meet him. So he gives him 3 varas. So the first vara, as you know, he says, look, my dad has got a loose temper. Let him calm down. Let him sleep well at night. Let him be nice to me. When I go back to my gross body and enter into my gross body, and when the body wakes up, let him recognize me as the same Nachiketa, not as some other ghost. Let him recognize me as Nachiketa and let him be nice to me. So be it, Yama says. And then he goes for the second vara. And the second vara Nachiketa asks, as you know, is, look, my dad was doing this Vishwajit Yajna, all these fire sacrifices. And he was doing this sacrifice to do what? To go to Swargaloka. And then what happens in Swargaloka? You are there for some time, and then you're again going to come back to Mrityuloka. You know what, Yama, I'm not particularly keen to have this kind of, fire sacrifice that I need to do. I want to know about that fire sacrifice that actually removes me from the shackles of bondage and takes me to moksha. So teach me that particular Agni sacrifice. And yes, Yama then talks about the Trinachiketaha, Trayare Viditva, and so on, Trikarma Krit, and he talks about how the fire sacrifice we mortals need to be doing in Kunda, Pinda, and Kala, and how you do your Yajna, Dana, and Tapas as taught to us in Bhagavad Gita. So this whole process of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, everything is discussed in that particular section, which was the second boon. And then Nachiketa goes to the third boon. So this particular slide discusses all about first boon and the second boon, which I'm pleased to say we have covered. So the next slide takes you through to the third boon, where Nachiketa says, Yeyam prete vichikitsya manushe astiti eke nayam astiti cha eke. Etad vidyam anushishtaha tvaya aham varanamesha varahat tritiyaha. So this is the third boon that Nachiketa says, look, let us assume that I'm doing all these fire sacrifices that you have taught me, and you have actually made this as Nachiketa Agni or Nachiketa sacrifice. And let me assume that, yes, I do this well, and eventually I make my way towards moksha. So his question is, what happens in moksha? Is there really something called moksha, or is it all a fabricated hypothesis of humans? Is there really something called moksha? If there is moksha, then what happens in moksha? Yeah. What is the situation of jivas in moksha? What is the relationship between jiva and Brahman? Are they same? Are they different? Is there something called the controllership of Brahman? Because in our samsara, we carry on with our mundane lives. Although the Supreme Brahman is still controlling our lives, we are not aware of it. That is the ignorance that we have in Mrityu Loka, and that is one of the fundamental reasons why we are going through samsara. And our friend Nachiketa is asking, is that kind of niyamakatva still there in moksha? Is that niyamakatva of Brahman is still there? If that niyamakatva is there, how big is this Brahman? What is his mahima? What is his greatness? I want to know about all this. Okay, so this is the third question of Nachiketa. And as we all know, most of us go through our lives not even asking these kind of questions. We are all so busy with our own mundane lives. So we just don't ask these questions. We don't ask, like how in Shvetashvatara Upanishad, it starts with Kim Karanam Brahma, Kutasma Jata, Jivamakena, Kuta Sampratishta, Adhishtaya Kena. So these are all the questions that Shvetashvatara Upanishad starts by asking, Kim Karanam? What is the cause of all this? What is the meaning of life? Why am I alive for so many years and then eventually die? What happens afterwards? So these are all the bigger questions, existential questions that we humans in our current day lives, we just don't have time to think about this. But our friend Nachiketa is asking these questions on our behalf, trying to find out what are the inner secrets of life? What happens beyond death? What happens in moksha? So this is where Nachiketa is coming from. But our guru Yama here is very, very skeptical. He is not very sure as to why he should be teaching Nachiketa these secret and sacred knowledge. And he, as you know, last time when we did this class, we went through all the mechanisms and tricks that Yama adopts to try and entice Nachiketa, asking him, why are you interested in these kind of questions? These are tough questions. Even I do not know them properly. Why do you want to waste your time in this? I will give you money. I will give you wealth. I will give you fortune. I will give you big houses. I will give you long life. Enjoy your life in this material world. Why do you want to know all those questions? Yeah. So that is where we were last week. So this is the last slide that we did last week. So let me just go through it. Shobhava matyasya yad antakayetat sarva indriyanam jarayanti tejaha api sarvam jivitam alpameva tavaiva vahaha tavanritya gitehe. So this particular verse, just to give you a quick briefing on this. So our friend Nachiketa said, I'll give you long life. I will give you cows. I will give you horses. I will give you elephants. I will give you long life, lot of land. I will give you, you become the king of the earth and become a chakravarti, rule, get your fame, and so on. If you still don't need if you're not happy with this, take things that are available in Devaloka. Take my apsaras, take my damsels, take my gandharvas, take all the instruments that are available in Devalokas, take these fancy vehicles that are available. These gandharvas and apsaras will do you service in Mrityuloka. They will serve you food. They'll do whatever you want. Take them. Live for one manvantara. Live for one Brahmakalpa if you want. So at that point, Nachiketa would say, Shobhavaha. So these things are very temporary. They may be there tomorrow, they may not be there tomorrow. Exactly like Ashwatha of chapter 15, first verse of Bhagavad Gita. Then he says, Indriyas, our sense organs, when they come in contact with sense objects, they can enjoy only to some extent. After that, they get desensitized. You get bored after some time. Yeah. Or our fundamental contact with the sense organs actually is a reason for our jara, our old age and death is probably because of our contact with the sense objects. The more food we eat, because we want to satisfy our tongue, the more food we eat, the food we eat directly influences our body and gives us various types of health conditions, for example. Okay, our indriyas also, as we age, they lose their power. So in this situation, Nachiketa gives a very important statement. And as I said, I reminded you last time, saying that if there is one sentence that we adopt of what Nachiketa is saying, think about this every day in our lives. Api sarvam jivitam alpameva. Everything lasts only for some time. They are not eternally available in the material world. So this is a very important statement that Nachiketa has told us. Okay, then he goes on again to reply to Yama, saying, Na vittena tarpaniyo manishyo lapsyamahe vittam adraksham chetva jivishyamo yavad ishyasi tvam varastume varaniyaha sa eva. So he says, man is never satisfied with the material wealth and possessions that he has. If he has some, he wants more. There is no limit to it. Na vittena tarpaniyo manushye. Very pertinent, very relevant statement today as it was in the Vedic times. And then he makes another statement, Jivishyamo yavad ishyasi tvam. So we all live for as long as you wish that we live. And also we all live for as long as you live. And by making this statement, Nachiketa also bounces this argument to Yama and says, like, make you also live only for one manvantara. Okay, you live for only one manvantara. After this manvantara is gone, there will be another Yama who will come along with Indra, Saptarishis, and all the other devas. And Manus, they change, as you know, with every manvantara. So Nachiketa will say, even after the completion of one manvantara, you yourself has gone. How on earth are you going to give me life up to one Brahmakalpa? And last week, when Sushrut Kulkarni ji had this quiz, and he asked us about what is the duration of Brahmakalpa, and that is a very long time, much longer than one Manvantara. But Nachiketa's argument here is, you yourself live only for one Manvantara, so how can you promise me one Brahmakalpa? So let's stop talking having this kiddish argument. Varastume varaniyaha sa eva. I don't want anything else that you've given me. I want only the third vara about what is moksha, what is the signs of moksha, what happens in moksha. That is what I want. This is where we stopped last week. But of course, Nachiketa's counter argument continues in the subsequent few verses, which themselves are very interesting. Okay, so before I go to this beautiful verse, so after the previous verse, what Nachiketa says is, this is a new verse for today's class. Ajiriyatam amrutanam upetya jiryan martyaha kvadastaha prajanan abhidyayan varanarati pramodan atidirge jivite koramate. So this is another argument that Nachiketa puts to Yama to again say why he doesn't want all these temporary things of life. And as I've reminded many times in this forum, let us all get into Nachiketa's shoes and understand what is his perspective of this particular statement. So Ajiriyatam. So Ajiriyatam means what? Jirya means what? Old age. Ajiriya means no old age. Amrutana means no cycles of death and birth. So, in the Vedic pantheon, all the Abhimani Devatas, all the Devatas who are there, they are, of course, they are in this samsara, but Devas do not have old age. Yeah, so that is an interesting concept of in Vedic philosophy. We mortals have our bodies, our material bodies decays, and we have old age in the sense our bodies have old age. We as jivas, as you know, we don't have old age. Only our bodies have old age; they decay. But for devatas, they also have a material body, but their material body does not decay. It doesn't go into old age. Devas don't become old. Okay, so that is why they are called ajiriyatam. Okay, Amrutanam is an interesting perspective when it comes to Devatas, in the sense that Devatas do not have cycles of death and birth like you and I. Yeah, they will be here for this particular one manvantara, for example, Yama, and after he finishes his one manvantara, he will go to Satyaloka and sit along with Chaturmukha before the Brahma Kalpa comes to an end. So he does not have again and again being born as Yama or somebody else, at least in this Brahma Kalpa. Okay, so Devatas don't have cycles of birth and death like us. And immediately Nachiketa says, but what is my state? Jiryan Martyaha. Okay, what is my position? I have a gross body which decays, goes into old age, and I am Martyaha. I go into the cycles of birth and death. So that is the difference between you, Yama, and me. But when I have reached a person like you, or when I have access to a guru like you, so that is what that word upetya means. Upetya, as you know, upa and etya. So the word upa is there. So who is going to tell us here what is the meaning of the word upa? We have done it on a number of occasions when we spoke about Upanishads and the definitions of Upanishads. So what does upa mean? So who is going to take that one? So upa, as you know, means sitting close. Yeah. So that is one meaning of upa. So again, as you know, upa has got so many other meanings, but here upa means I'm sitting close to you. I've come to Yamaloka. I'm at your gates, and we are both having this conversation, and I'm very close to you. So upa etya, when I have access to a guru like you, I know then when I have a guru like you, I need to make the use of the opportunity that I have. Yeah, I know that it is important to know about moksha. If I do not get that knowledge from a guru like you, and I have an opportunity to be next to a guru like you, if I don't ask you about those kind of important questions, and I still ask only stupid questions like stupid boons like give me wealth and so on, it will be a great loss to me. Ajiriyatam amrutanam upetya jiriyan martyaha. Okay. So that is the meaning of that sentence there, that, this is a great opportunity for me to learn from such an elevated guru such as yourself, who has no old age and no cycles of birth and death. Whereas me, I have old age and death, and I want to get rid of this. So I want to know about what happens in moksha. Okay, so let's move on to the same line, and it becomes more and more interesting as we dissect out individual words. Then Nachiketa says, Jiriyan Martyaha Kvadastaha. So look at the sequence here. Jiriyan, old age. Martyaha, death. Kvadastaha is the next word. So the sequence is very relevant. Kvadastaha is a very, very interesting Sanskrit word. Let's open it up. So it is Kvata and Staha. Staha means you are there. It's a station. It is a position. Kvata. Kvata is a very ancient archaic Vedic word which somehow has made its presence in common day Indian languages. Okay. For example, in Kannada, for example, my mother tongue, kvata becomes kota, kota kota. So kota kota means boiling. So I think even in other South Indian languages like Tamil, it is called kota kota, which means something that is boiling. Okay, and folks here could also remind me if in their languages whether the word kota is used for something that boils. Okay, so kvata essentially means boiling. Okay, boiling is what? Suffering. Where does that boiling and suffering happens? In Kumbi Paka. So in Naraka, for example, we discussed about this a few weeks ago, about how in Naraka the souls that are committed sins are boiled. So that boiling, they're cooked, and then afterwards they go back to the Mrityu Loka. You remember Yamadutas have also said that Anupashya yata purve pratipashya tata pare sasyamiva martyaha pachyate sasyamiva jayate punaha. Like how vegetables are being cooked, like that the jivas are cooked in Naraka for all the bad deeds that they are doing. Oh, the Nachiketa, see this is what the Yamaduta is saying. And that boiling is called kvata. Yeah, kvatastaha.
Madhu, you are breaking up. We can't hear you properly.
Okay, is it okay now? Can you hear me all right now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Fine. Yeah. Thank you. So the kvatastaha, actually there means spending time in Naraka. So this is what happens to all of us. Jiryan, Martyaha, kvatastaha. So we are there in the Mrityu Loka. We spend some time, our bodies decay, then the bodies we shed, then we go to Yamaloka for all the bad deeds that we do. We then go to Kvatastaha, we go to Naraka. Okay, so kvata is an interesting word. Similarly, kvata can also be split as kva adaha staha. Adaha plus taha plus kva. So adaha means below. Staha means place. So what is there below? Below place means Naraka. So we know that there are 4 or 5 stations below Mrityu Loka up to Andatamas, as you know. So Adahastaha. So Kwa there becomes a question mark. Kwa Adastaha. Can anyone like such a person who just lives in this world, just enjoys all the material things, and then eventually commits all sorts of sins, and then he goes to Narakaloka and then gets boiled? Can anyone like such a person? I don't want to be such a person. I actually want to get rid of this. Abhidhyayan Varanarati Pramodan is the next line. Abhidhyayan Varanarati Pramodan. A very, very important statement. This is what we all do. Okay. These are all the things that we are after. Abhidhyayan. Dhyayan means somebody who is constantly thinking about and gets attracted to what? Varana. Varana means color, colorful. Colorful means what? Beautiful sights. Okay. Varana also is a meaning, is a word for sounds, different musics and sounds, and beautiful sights and colorful things. These are all the things that we are after in life. Anything that's beautiful, anything we think is colorful, it attracts us. If there is a nice music, nice sound, we move towards it. Rati, entertainment, whatever entertainment that we want. Okay, this is what we are doing. Abhidhyayan, constantly thinking about this. Varana Rati Pramodan. Okay, what is the point in just delaying the inevitable destructions of these material enjoyments? Is where Nachiketa is coming. Ati dirge jivite ko ramate. What is the use? Ati dirge means long, jivite means life. After living all these long life, just going after colorful and beautiful sights and different types of sounds and musics and different types of entertainment to satisfy my sense organs, what is the use of living such a life? Okay, so ati dirge jivite ko ramate. So I've got a picture of a Californian redwood tree here. The redwood tree, I'm told, can live for 600, 700 years, even more. Yes, it may have some positive influence on the environment by absorbing carbon dioxide and so on, but that is for our benefit. But from a tree's perspective, what is the point in living for 600, 700 years when you can't do any sadhana with the body that you have? Okay. And what is the point in me living for one manvantara when I don't do any sadhanas and I'm just like a Californian redwood tree? Okay. And then Nachiketa is also asking the question, what is the difference between me and a dog? There is no difference. What does a dog do? It eats, it sleeps, it mates, and it defends. I do the same thing. How am I different despite having a sadhana sharira? I don't want long life just to enjoy these material things. This is the argument of Nachiketa, who is less than 10 years old. And if we get into Nachiketa's shoes and start ruminating and contemplating on this philosophy, this is the core philosophy of Sanatana Dharma. Yeah, basically what Nachiketa is saying is what exactly Jayatirtha has said as to who an adhikari or a mumukshu is. Ihahi vivida samsarika dukkha darshanena viraktasya samadamadi mataha mumukshoho adhikarinaha. This is exactly what Nachiketa is reminding us. We should all reach that point where we feel enough is enough. We are just bored with the same thing again and again, of going always after colorful things, beautiful sights, beautiful sounds, and all sorts of entertainments. And we feel that these things make us happy and will give us eternal joy. Actually, they don't. They last for some time and then they go away. And our friend Nachiketa has already described that in the previous verse. So he says, I don't want all this silly things that you offered me. I really don't want that. I only want to know about some fundamental existential questions. So Yama then is thinking, then what is it that you seek, Nachiketa? You're putting so much of counter arguments. So Nachiketa immediately says, Yasmin idam vichikitsanti mrutyoho yat samparaye mahati bruhi nahatat yo ayam varo gudam anupravishto na anyam tasman Nachiketa vrunite. Okay, so there are some very, very important words in this verse. And again gives you a clear indication as to why the third vara is about asking about moksha. And I've given you lots of reasons about that. Third vara is not about asking the question whether souls exist after birth or not. That has already been answered in the first vara. Third vara is about asking about our salvation, our liberation, our moksha sthiti. Okay. Why? Here is another verse that gives you a clear evidence for that. Yasmin idam vichikitsanti mrutyoho yat samparaye mahati bruhinastat. Okay. Mrutyoho, that is easy. Mrutyo means yama. Yasmin idam vichikitsanti. Idam means, vichikitsanti, as you know, we discussed about vicharane or discussion or debate. About idam means what? This situation in moksha. Okay. Mrityoho yasmin idam vichikitsanti. Not just the folks who are in the mrityu loka, like you and me doing this satsang and having a discussion about this, but also in the gurukulas, in all the universities and in all the ancient seats of learning in mrityu loka, they are discussing these questions, right? I want to know about those questions. I want the answer to those questions. Not only folks in mrityu loka are still discussing this, but also, you know what, even folks who are already in moksha, they are still discussing about the greatness of Brahman, because they themselves still do not know fully who this Brahman is and what his greatness is. They are also still discussing these questions. They are also vichikitsanti to some extent. So that is what the next line means. Samparaye mahati. Okay, mahati means the elevated souls who have reached samparaye. So I am going to pause for a minute and understand from friends here, what is their understanding of what samparaye actually means. Have you heard of this word? If so, please give us a background to that, please. Okay, so not to worry. So I'll take you through this Samparaye. So Samparaye is a very, very important Sanskrit word. Okay, it will come in so many Upanishads, in Vedas, it comes this word. So you need to understand what Samparaye is. For example, Taitari Brahmanam will say, Na avedavin manutetam bruhantam sarva anubhum atmanam Samparaye. Okay, so what that verse actually means is we are talking. This verse talks about the importance of Vedas. Na avedavin manutetam. He who does not know the Vedas will never know this Bruhantam. Sarva Anubhum Atmanam. He will never know the Supreme Brahman if he does not know the Vedas. And if he does not know the Vedas, he will never reach Samparaya. Okay. So Katha Upanishad itself, and we will have that verse coming fairly soon. That also again says the same thing. Here it says, Yat Samparaya Mahati Bruhinas Tat, and Yama against Yama, when he answers back to Nachiketa, he actually says, Na Samparayaha Pratibhati Balam Pramadyantam Vittamohena Mudam Ayam Loko Nasti Parayiti Mani Punaha Punaha Vasham Apadyate Me. So again, he uses this word Samparaya. Okay. So what does Samparaya actually mean? So as you usually, as we study the Upanishads, we have to break it open what Samparaya means. Samyak parasmin ayanam. Samyak means very well. Parasmin means para or gate, God or supreme being. Ayanam means reaching that place. So Samyak parasmin ayanam. Reaching para very well is called Samparaya. Okay, so that essentially means moksha. So when the Vedas or the Upanishads talk about Samparaya, Samparaya means moksha. Okay, so again here is another proof that this is a discussion about the state of moksha. Okay, so here I have some questions which I hope will open up discussion today. Yeah. So Samparaya means reaching para very well. Okay. Let's think about this a little bit more, because we don't have to reach para, right? We don't have to go to this place called Vaikunta, and we don't have to sit there and reach him. He is inside us as our Antaryamin, right? He is always inside us as our Antaryamin. So we don't have to reach him. He is actually next to us. He is already inside us. So how is this Samparaya? For example, when we did Mandukya Upanishad, and also in Chandogya Upanishad, chapter 6, when we did that illustration of a bird in a cage running around with its feet tied to a rope, we discussed this state of Sushupti. Okay, so Sushupti is also a state where the jivas embrace the Supreme. Okay, and we have done that. So my question here for us to think about is, how is the Samparaya state or the moksha state different from the Sushupti state? So who is going to take this on?
Madhu?
Go for it, Nitaji.
Yeah, isn't there Ajnana in Sushupti state? But we don't know that we are near Bhagavad.
Yeah, brilliant answer, Nitaji. Perfectly right. So that is the difference. The Samparaya and the Sushupti state. Every night when we go to the deep sleep, we go and embrace the Supreme, but we are ignorant that we are actually embraced the Supreme. We actually do not know. Whereas the Samparaya state is where you have not only embraced the Supreme eternally, but you are eternally aware that you are eternally embraced the Supreme. So that is the difference between the Turiya state or the Samparaya state and the Sushupti state. Okay, so this is what Nachiketa is asking. Yet Samparaye Mahati, even those who have embraced the Supreme and know that they are in constant companion of Supreme in moksha, they themselves still do not know everything about his greatness. They do not know everything about the Supreme's greatness. And they are also talking among each other as to, oh, how great is this Supreme, what is this stuff. And as I told you before, in moksha, you don't sit around and do nothing. You're still doing Veda Parayana, you're still, reading Brahmasutras, maybe you're still doing Gita, and you're still doing various havans, and you're worshipping the Supreme, trying still to understand more and more about the Supreme, and in that process, increasing your intensity of bliss. So that is what the Shastras tell us that we will be doing in moksha when we go there. So that is what Nachiketa is saying. Yet Samparaye Mahati Bruhinastat. Okay. So I hope you find that interesting. So in that Samparaya moksha state, he is, I know we know this chapter 15, 18th verse, isn't it? So let's recite this. Let's get one of you to recite 18th verse of chapter 15, please. Who wants to take this on? Pragnesh, go for it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yasmat sarvatitoham aksaradapi chottamah atosmi loke vede cha prathita purushottamah.
Thank you very much, Pragnesh. So in this verse, Krishna has said, I am far superior to Jivas and I am much bigger than Lakshmi or Sri Tattva. And that is why I am worshipped as Purushottama. Nobody knows me fully. Yeah, I am so big, nobody knows me fully. But Purusha Shukta, I just want to remind, because this is one of my favorite verses in Purusha Shukta. Uta amrutatvasya ishanaha yadannena atirohati. Uta, even amrutatvasya ishanaha. Those who are in moksha, he is the ishanaha. Ishanaha means the supreme controller. Ishaha anaha. Yeah. So Ishanaha, he is the supreme controller of all the Mukta Jivas. So by implication, it not only means that he is the supreme controller of Jivas in Moksha, he is also controller of the Jivas in Samsara. Okay. So Uta Amrutatvasya Ishanaha, and that is what Nachiketa is asking. Veda says Uta Amrutatvasya Ishanaha, but what does that mean? What does that mean that the supreme being controls me? What does it actually mean? Okay. And those folks who are there, they still themselves do not know that fully in all its glory and dimension. And they are still discussing. That is what I want to know. Bruhidaha tat. Okay. So, yo ayam varo gudam anupravishto na anyam tasmad nachiketo vrunite. So, gudam anupravishtaha. Let's not spend too much time with this verse. Gudam means something that is very secret. Okay, this secret knowledge is what I want. Okay, there is a sutra of Badarayana, Anavishkuruvan Anvayat, where it says, don't sell your philosophy to your man on the streets. Teach philosophy only for those who are interested and have the aptitude to learn. Yeah, that is a clear statement from our founding father Badarayana, Anavishkuruvan Anvayat. So that is what Nachiketa is clearly demonstrating, that he is not a man, your average man on the street. He is a real mumukshu and he wants to know the secret knowledge. And here he says, Na anyam tasmat Nachiketo vrinite. So this is interesting. This is Nachiketa himself telling Yama, Na anyam tasmat Nachiketo vrinite. That means he stresses that this Nachiketa does not want anything else. I want to know only about this moksha. I don't want any of this material knowledge. I want spiritual knowledge. I do not want material knowledge. Yeah. So this is where the first valli or the first adhyaya ends. Na anyam tasmat nachiketo vrunite. And we have done this verse already. Uta amrutatvasya ishanam, and Vishnu Sahasranam also says the same thing. Muktanam paramagatihi. There is a Vishnu Sahasranama verse. All the muktas, he is the supreme abode. He is the controller of all the muktas. Muktanam paramagatihi uta amrutatvasya ishanaha. And that is what our friend Nachiketa wants to know. Because as we have discussed in Mundaka Upanishad, the fundamental reason why we are suffering in samsara is that we have forgotten that we are actually the controlled, and there is the controller who controls everything that we do. We have forgotten that point, and that is why we suffer in samsara. And the first two verses clearly mention that. So I don't know if any one of you want to take up these first two verses of Mundaka Upanishad and recite it for us. Anybody want to have a go at that?
Shall I, Madhu?
Go for it, Sheila-ji.
Dvasuparna sayuja sakhaya samanam raksham parishashvajate tayoranyaha pipalam swadhutya shasna nanyo abhichakashiti samane vrikshe purusho nimagno nisha shaya shochati muhyamanaha जुष्टं यदा पश्यत्यन्यमीशमस्य महिमानमि मिति वीतशोकः.
Thank you so much, Shilaji. Great recitation. So, the second line of that is very important. Samane vrikshe purusho nimagnaha anishaya shochati muhyamanaha jushtam yada pashyati anyam isham asya mahimanam iti vitashokaha. So he says this bird which is there in this tree eating these bitter fruits and things, these bitter fruits are very, very tasty, but actually it is suffering and suffering and suffering. And it is suffering, and he is trying to find this answer to this problem as to why it is suffering. And the answer to that is the last line, Jushtam yada pashyati anyam isham. When it realizes there is this other bird which controls it, that is there next to it, when it understands that, and it understands its greatness, asya mahimanam iti vitashokaha. It is only at that point that it then begins to shed all its suffering. Okay, so these statements of Mundaka Upanishad, the second verse is very important, relevant to what Nachiketa is seeking and what the Purusha Sukta is saying about Uta Amrutatvasya Ishana. So when this level of conversation is happening between Nachiketa and Yama, our Guru Yama is supremely impressed. He is so impressed with this student. Yeah, and he says he's just shocked and perplexed and elated that he is so fortunate to have a student like him who is so determined and wants to ask all these difficult questions and wants answer for these difficult questions. And that is how the second Valli starts. Okay, so what does the second Valli, so far what have we understood from all this? What we have understood so far is this particular situation gives a classic example of Nachiketa's determination to know spiritual knowledge, and that it is essential for spiritual progress. So our friend Shrotru, Nachiketa is a Shrotru here, and Yama is the Vaktru. And this Shrotru is determined. It illustrates his determination for Paravidya. And he's not like your average man on the streets. And again, Gita 7, verse 3 describes this. So who wants to take up this verse, please? Any volunteers, or shall I pick one? Neetaji?
Yeah, okay. मनुष्याणां सहस्रेषु कश्चित् यतति सिद्धये यततामपि सिद्धानां कश्चिन्मां वेत्ति तत्त्वतः.
Beautiful. So that is what Krishna has also captured, isn't it? There may be 1 million human beings on the streets, but not all of them want to know about Paravidya. So even among the one that wants to know about the Paravidya, there will be many such folks who will try to know the Paravidya, but there will be one among those who actually will know about the Supreme Tattvataha. Okay, so Nachiketa is one such person. Manushyanam Sahasreshu, and again we need to get into Nachiketa's shoes and see ourselves whether we fit into that equation. Are we that person that Gita Krishna is telling us in 7.3? Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kaschid Yatati Siddhaye. Are we that person? We need to honestly ask ourselves, and if we are, then there is a hope that we will actually make progress. So the situation is like this. It is indeed rare to have a student like Nachiketa. And it is indeed a guru's fortune to have such a student. It's usually the reverse, isn't it? We are all fond of having a very good guru who can teach us. But here the roles are slightly reversed. And it is such a good student that the Yama is thinking, I am very fortunate. I'm very fortunate to have a student like me. Therefore, elated Yama now teaches the essence of Vedic philosophy. So this is where Yama then goes in a higher planes of philosophy. And let's see over the next 20-25 minutes whether we will be able to pick a few verses. I'm hoping to take 1 or 2 verses and again discuss some core philosophies here. So Yama immediately, this is the first verse of the second Valli of the first Adhyaya of Katha Upanishad, and he says, Anyat Shreyo, Anyat Uta Eva Preyaha, Te Ube Nana Arte Purusham Sinitaha, tayoho shreyaha adadanasya sadhu bhavati hiyate artad yavu preyo vrunite. Okay, I would urge you to memorize this verse. Anyad shreyo anyad utaiva preyaha te ube nana arte purusham sinitaha tayoho shreya adadanasya sadhu bhavati hiyate artad yavu preyo vrunite. So if we can, in every aspect of life that we do, from waking up to going to sleep, day in and day out, and the situations that we come across and the situations that we want to ourselves, if we can use this concept of what Nachiketa is saying, what is Shreyas and what is prayers, then we will be able to discriminate and follow the right path which we desire, which is Paravidya. Okay, so what is Shreyaha? So Shreyaha, very bird's eye view of what Shreyaha is, the path we move towards light or knowledge is literally what Shreyaha is. Prayers is the path that pulls us towards darkness or ignorance. Okay, this is the fundamental division. Path of knowledge, path of ignorance. Shreyas, path towards knowledge. Prayers, path towards ignorance. So this is how Yama starts his philosophy. Anyad Shreyaha, Anyad Utaiva Preyaha. So let's look at it in detail. Okay. So Anyad Shreyaha, Anyad Utaiva Preyaha. So there are two things in samsara, Shreyas and prayers, for souls that are embodied. Okay. Te ube, these two. Okay. Te ube literally means these two. Nana arte. Artha means purushartha kind of artha. Destinations, what goals, what we seek, what the results. Nana arte means these two give two different destinations or results. Okay. Anyad shreyo, anyad uteva preyaha, te ube nana arte. Okay. Purusham sinitaha. Purusham means you and me. Purusham means that soul that is inside a human body is called as a purusha. Whereas if the soul is inside an animal body, it's called pashu. So try and make that difference. Pashu is animals. Purusha is a human. Why? On earth, human body is the most evolved, and it is the sadhana sharira, and it is the most evolved. That is why it is called purusha, and it is the sadhana sharira that we have to make progress and find our destination. So that is why Yama uses purusham. So again, you have to watch these words, and they bring us more philosophical insights. Te ube nana arte purusham sinitaha. Sinitaha means they tie and pull. Okay. So what Yama is saying is there are these two things that pulls humans in two different directions. They bind and pull the humans in two different directions. Okay. What are those two different directions? The souls that have a sattvika tendency, as what Krishna describes as Devi Sampat, they move towards knowledge. They move towards righteousness and knowledge, paravidya, and eventually find their destination to moksha. Okay. Tayoho shreyaha adadanasya sadhu bhavati. Sadhu there means mangala, auspicious outcomes. What is the auspicious outcomes? They eventually find their destination to moksha. So those are the paths that jivas who have the sattvic tendencies use Shreyas approach to reach moksha. What happens to the ones that follow prayers? Hiyate artat yavu preyo vrunite. Okay. Hiyate means destruction. Artat means whatever they lose their purusharthas. What is the highest purushartha? Moksha. Hiyate artat yavu preyo vrunite. So the souls that have rajasic and tamasic tendencies, they either go round and round in circles in samsara, okay, or they either they're stuck in samsara or they go to the path of destruction ultimately and go to naraka and andatamas wherever. Okay? So whenever I go to London, I see the London Eye. That's what it reminds me is the position of prayers. We all go into the London Eye. When we go up, we have fantastic sights of London, but eventually we come down and you have to see this ground pavement and so on, and again you go up, and that is what happens to us in Nitya Samsarins. That is what happens, and most of us are Nitya Samsarins. Your average man on the street is not interested in prayers, is not interested in Shreyas, is more interested in prayers. So what does prayers then actually mean? So prayers is something that is pleasant, okay, so something that is pleasant now, okay. Yeah, so something that is pleasant now, but actually will give us problems in the future. Whereas Shreyas is something that feels very hard now, but actually it will give us a lot of benefits in the future. So that is the two different aspects in which samsara happens, and we can choose which path we want to take, the path of Shreyas or the path of prayers. Shreyascha preyascha manushyam yetaha tau samparitya vivinakti dhiraha shreyo hi dhiro abhipreyaso vrinite preyo mande yogakshemad vrinite. So Yama then says, what is happening here? Well, who goes for prayers and who goes for Shreyas? So this figure here gives you a clear indication. There's only very few who chose this path towards Shreyas and knowledge and Paravidya and Moksha. Majority choose this path of prayers, of transient pleasures, something that is pleasant now, but actually harmful later. Yeah. Tau samparitya, what does the dhiraha do? What does the knowledgeable or the wise person, what does he do? Tau samparitya vivinakti dhiraha. So a dhiraha again is a person, di and raha. Di means jnana, raha means ananda. He who has jnana and ananda is the knowledgeable person. So he is called as dhiraha, panditaha, a brave man, a man of conviction, a man of confidence. There are so many other meanings of dhiraha. So this dhiraha, what does he do? Samparitya vivinakti. Okay, vivinakti means vichareti. He thinks, he contemplates, he uses his intellect, and he uses viveka, and he uses discriminate knowledge and decides. Swabuddhaya samyak sarvata vicharya is samparitya vichareti dhiraha. Dhiraha again is a common word in Bhagavad Gita. There are so many places dhiraha comes in. Maybe I just got a quiz here. Can anybody recite a verse in Bhagavad Gita where dhiraha comes? Who wants to take that quiz?
Is it 2:13?
Go for it. Which one? Yeah, recite that, Neetaji.
Dehi nosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptihi dhiras tatra namuhyate.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so there is one example of dhiraha in chapter 2, that the knowledgeable, the one who is able, who uses his intelligence and intellect, he knows the real position. So shreyo hi dhiraha. So this person with discrimination chooses shreyas. Okay, he prefers abhishta means he prefers shreyas, who the dhiraha, and gives up preyaha, vrinite. So he goes towards that path. So the one with discrimination and intellect takes that path towards knowledge and light. Okay, dhiro shreyo abhivrinite. Preyaha manda. Yama actually tells people off who follow these temporary pleasures, which gives you more damage in the long run. He calls them as idiots. Preyo mando. What do these fellows do? Yogakshemam vrinite. So yoga means what? So again, yogakshemam vahami aham in Gita. So that comes in a slightly different context. So here, yogakshemam means yogakshemad vrinite. Yoga means something that you don't have and then you get it. Then it is called yoga. So in Kannada, for example, you say, oh, look, he's got yogam. He's got yoga. What he did not get, he achieved. Even in Tamil, yoga is there, used in colloquial language. Yoga means acquiring what one does not have. Kshemad means preservation of it after having obtained it. Becoming miserly, saving it, holding it. And this is what the preyo mando yoga kshemam vrinite. That is what they want. Yeah, they want properties, they'll save the properties, they make more properties, save properties, make money, have pleasure, try to save it, have more, try to save it. This is what they do. Preyo mando yoga kshemam vrinite. So these are two distinct paths that Yama is telling that jivas do. Yeah, so this is the path of Devi Sampat as described in Gita, and this is the path of Asuri Sampat as described in Gita. So the ones, the Rajasic and Tamasik who have Asuri Sampat, they go towards prayers, whereas the ones who have Satvika go towards Shreyas. Okay. Shreyascha preyascha manusyam yetaha tau samparitya vivinakti dhiraha shreyo hi dhiro abhipreyaso vrinite preyo mando yogakshemad vrinite. Now, why is Yama telling all this? Because he's starting praising this student. He says, look, there are all these fellows who are all towards prayers, but Nachiketa, you are going towards Shreyas, and I'm really happy and impressed with that. That is what Yama is telling us here. Okay, Sattvam Priyan Priya Rupamsha Kaman Abhidhyayan Nachiketo Atyatsrakshihi Naitam Shunkam Vittamayim Avapto Yasyam Majjanti Bahavo Manushyaha. Okay, so we will go through. This is an easy verse for us to go through. Priyan Priya Rupamshta Kaman. So this is what we have discussed so far last week and now. These are all the things that we like. These are all the things that have beautiful forms. And these are the ones that satisfy all our desires. Priyan Priya Rupamshta Kaman. Abhidhyayan Nachiketo Atyasrakshihi. Atyasrakshihi means you gave up. Abhidhyayan, after thinking about this, after using your intellect, after discriminating and understanding that these are temporary things, you gave up that. You know what? I even offered you a gold chain. Yetam shrunkam, and I offered you a lot of money. Vittamayim. Yetam shrunkam vittamayim na avapta. You did not accept this. But actually, you know what? These are all the things that the common man wants, and they sink in that. Yasyam majjanti bahavo manushyaha. Your common man who follows prayers, they're constantly, attracted towards these desires, and they have sunk themselves in samsara. Yeah, yasyam majjanti means sinking. Majjanti bahavo manushyaha. Many people, yes, they are mananashilas. They think, but they think in the wrong direction and move towards prayers, and they sink in samsara. But you are the other way around. Abhidhyayan nachiketo atyasrakshihi. Okay. Duram, and then he goes on to talk about this prayers and shreyas, and we will finish today's class with that. Duram yete viparite visuchi avidya cha vidyeti jnata vidyam abhipsitam nachiketasam manye natva kama bahavo alolupatta. Okay, so he says, so what is it that drives one to go towards shreyas, and what is it that drives one to go towards prayers? That is the next level of discussion. Yes, we understood there is the shreyas and there is the prayers. But then the question is, what is it that drives a soul to go towards shreyas or prayers? So Yama describes this, and he says, Duram ete. So these two, shreyas and prayers, are very far from each other. Okay, Duram ete. Viparite, they have an entirely different outcomes. They are opposite of each other, white and black. Viparite, Vishuchi, Viruddha Gati, they give different destinies. The Shreyas destiny gives moksha. The prayers destiny gives us either as a Nitya Samsarin or take us to Naraka. Okay, how did that happen? It happens because of two things. The knowledgeable know this. What is that? Avidyaya yacha vidyeti jnata. So jnata means that who is knowledgeable. He knows that vidya, knowledge. By vidya we mean paravidya. Spiritual knowledge takes us towards shreyas, whereas avidya or ignorance takes us towards prayers. But what was your position, Nachiketa? Vidya abhipsitan Nachiketasam manye natva kama. You were firmly fixed desires of knowledge, and you gave up all the desires of material benefit. So vidyam abhipsinam Nachiketasam manye natva kamaha. Whereas what do the others do? Bahavo alolupanta. Alolupanta means they are distracted. They are constantly shaky. They are distracted and tempted towards material things. Okay. So fundamentally, Shreyas and Preyas are the two options that are available to us according to Yama. And if we use our knowledge, we go towards Shreyas. But if we don't make a positive attempt to gain knowledge, then we are stuck in ignorance. And because of the ignorance, we choose prayers. Okay, so the choice is entirely us, and we decide which route that we are going to take. Okay, so what I want to do is the next 10-15 minutes that we close today's talk, I just want to talk about this concept of ignorance. And this is important for us because this is what Nachiketa, this is what Yama is talking about. He's talking about this concept of avidya, which takes us to prayers, whereas vidya takes us to shreyas. So what is this avidya which leads us to prayers? What is it? Who has it? Where is it? When, why, and how has this come about? If you think about our journey of souls that we did, I think 1.5 years, 2 years ago now, we did our journey of souls where we spent a lot of time talking about this ignorance. Yeah, unless we know what ignorance is, we will not be able to eradicate this ignorance. So this is a core philosophical problem. Yeah, what is ignorance and who has it? Okay, so I just want to open it up for discussion for the next 10-15 minutes and close this session with talking about ignorance, and we'll pick it up next week. So questions for discussion. What is ignorance and what do we understand by it? Is ignorance, what I'm asking is ignorance something that is out there? Is it a substance? What is it? Is it absence of knowledge, or is it a positive presence of something? So Pragnesh, go for it.
It is an artificial layer that covers things up. So even though we have substance within us, we do not know. It is called avaran. So like a curtain sort of thing, or a layer.
What is it made of, Pragnesh?
Man, buddhi, and ahankar.
Okay, so man buddhi. Okay, that's good. Thank you for the interesting ideas. Yeah, anybody else wants to contribute to this discussion, please?
Avidya.
Sudhir Shah is saying avidya. Thank you. Anybody else? Sushrut.
Yeah.
It is in the sixth stage of creation. Ignorance comes in the sixth stage of creation.
So you think it is a positive entity? It is something that is there, that is created.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, it is created by Bhagavanta and given quite deliberately to us, and then we have to work to overcome it, and that is the whole purpose of our existence.
Yeah, wonderful, Sushil. Thanks for that contribution. Anybody else? I heard a few other background conversations. Anybody else wants to contribute here?
Yeah, I was also about to tell that when we understand that our body mind is everything, so that is ignorance. When we have this body mind intelligence as the doer of everything, when we that is ignorance, I feel. And again, this is given by the Lord so that we evolve and understand that That Paramatma is the one behind everything and not the body, mind, and intelligence or whatever.
Thank you,
Namaskar.
Pratibha ji. Thank you, Pratibha ji. Pragdesh, you had also briefly re-raised your hands, or was it a historic hand raise?
No, I was cross-referring to Bhajagovindam. Mudamate. It says Mudamate. That means we are deluded. So our intellect is sometimes taken to a different path, like you were saying, Sray and pray. So that also can lead to avidya and ignorance.
Wonderful, Pragnesh. Thank you. Deval ji.
I don't know. I mean, I've been listening to these lectures. I'm not 100% what is the ignorance about and who has the ignorance. And I think that has been puzzling a lot of philosophers over the centuries and all the acharyas. And hence, we have come up with these theories. And then they are different. I mean, when we did the two birds theory, the ignorance over there was you described that ignorance is that the first bird does not know the existence of the second bird. And it's facing away from that. So there are levels and levels of ignorance. So I'm not sure what you are asking.
Okay, thank you, Deval ji. So you're still not sure what ignorance
I'm ignorant about it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, thanks. Divya ji.
Is it ignorance of the self, not having awareness of the self?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Divya ji. Yeah, that's great answer. Yeah, so there is lots of ideas about what ignorance is. Neeta, Shushruth, you raised your hands.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say that Maya is also avidya. There are many other words, isn't it, for avidya? Is Maya part? Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Neeta ji. Yes, so
One doubt I have is this: as long as we are in ignorance, we are not happy. Once we understand, and that's what we know, that we are ignorance. Is it right? Only it is not separated. You're always searching, and when the search ends, then you know ignorance is over.
No, there is a description. There are two types of people who are happy. One who are completely unaware are also happy, isn't it? Somewhere we have discussed.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of ignorance can be bliss, but that's a very Western concept. Ignorance is bliss. But anyway, I've got a few slides talking about it. Neeta ji, you've raised your hands. Veena also has raised her hands.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether it is related to the Jiva Chadika and Parama Chadika.
Yeah, thank you, Sushruth. Yeah, Veena ji.
Madhu Suresh,
Yeah.
Isn't it what one of the eightfold creation in which Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, Jnana, Ajnana, Bandha, Moksha. So Ajnana is something which is actually, as Sushruth was saying, when it is what the Lord creates in the process of creation, and it is to facilitate the jiva in its journey. That's how I would understand it.
Yeah, brilliant, Suresh. Thank you so much. So we got Neeta again raised her hands. Historic or new? Okay. Okay. Excellent. So, very, very, very interactive discussion on what ignorance is. So, I like Deval's comment that we are ignorant of what ignorance actually is. So, maybe our first point of this journey is actually to understand what ignorance is. When you understand what is the philosophical, ontological position of ignorance in Vedic philosophy, then maybe we'll be able to make some progress trying to dissect it out from our lives and in our deep conscience and consciousness where it is stuck. Okay, so most of you picked up this very, very important point of
Madhu, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please, Sheila ji. Yeah.
They say when you get the knowledge, the ignorance goes. But whatever has been in the life, the habits and things, does it go that easily? Just because you learn Purusha and Prakriti and theory and everything?
Yeah,
It
very,
has to be
very,
applied, isn't it?
yeah, very true, Shilaji. So theory is one, and the practice of this is another aspect to it. So I think you're absolutely right. Practicing of it is the key to remove that ignorance, but we still need to start somewhere. We need to have the knowledge base that we then put it into application. So I completely agree with you on this one. So let's go back to avidya. So the concept of avidya, as most of us has picked up from our discussions on the journey of souls, is that there are 9 stages of creation that is described in Srimad Bhagavatam. And when that creation happens, we went through all this Mula Prakriti, then you have Mahat Tattva, then you have Ahankara Tattva, then you have ignorance that comes in. So it is the 6th stage that is described in Bhagavatam. Shashtastu tamasahas sargaha yastu buddhi krutaha praboho. Okay, so ignorance is created, and this is the 6th stage of creation. Okay, so in that sense, the point that is key here is that we need to understand that ignorance is not mere absence of knowledge. Ignorance is a positive entity. It is a creation. It is a material creation. It is made up of components of Prakriti, and it is a positive entity. Okay, so that is the first thing that we need to understand is ignorance is a positive entity. It is not a mere absence of knowledge. Okay, now of course in our discussions we've had these birds here, and we have said who has ignorance. Is the ignorance on Brahman bird, or is the ignorance on the Jiva bird? We have had those discussions. Where is this? If this ignorance is a positive entity, where is it, and on whom does it fall? So when you take the Srimad Bhagavatam's view, and it is the 6th stage of creation, and the Supreme Lord himself brings this forth into creation, that should give us some clue that possibly this Lord may not have ignorance. It is just a thought at this point. Let's explore this further. So in Vedic scriptures, this ignorance, which is a positive entity, has got various names, and Neetaji picked it up. So Ajnana, Kala, Moha, Ajnana Bandhana, Avidya, Abuddhi, Tamas, Anda, Avidya Maya, Maya, that Neetaji mentioned. These are all different names of this entity. Okay, Maya, and I've taken a special attention here on Maya. And I put for your attention, please, because this is very important. The word Maya that comes in Vedic philosophy, particularly in Vedanta darshanas, the 3 schools, Advaita, Advaita, and Visishta Advaita, where this concept of Maya comes. Maya, the word Maya, again in Vedic philosophy, has got various meanings. Ignorance is only one meaning of Maya. It also means God's Mahima. Yeah. It also means God's Icha. It is also another name for Prakriti. It is also another name for Chetana Prakriti, or Shri Tattva, yeah, or Lakshmi. And it is also a name for illusion. So these are all the meanings that the Vedic philosophy ascribes to Maya. There are 6 meanings to Maya. Okay, so we need to understand this first. Okay, that Maya, synonymous with ignorance. Ignorance is a positive entity, comes during creation. It is a modification of matter. Okay, so what is this ignorance then? Is it real? Is it unreal? Who has ignorance? Does the Jiva has ignorance, or Brahman himself has ignorance? This is the core philosophical discussion between the 3 schools of Vedantas, Advaita, Dvaita, and Visishta Advaita. Okay, now I'm not sure whether we have time for this, but what I'll do is, we have almost come to the end of today's talk, but what I would want to do today is for you to go back and start thinking about this problem of ignorance. Now that I've inserted the idea that this is possibly a positive thing, it is not mere absence of knowledge, and that this Maya, which is the other name of ignorance, has got 6 other meanings. Now you can go back and start doing your own research as to who has this ignorance. Does the Brahman have ignorance, or the Jiva has ignorance? What are the views in Vedas Vedanta schools of philosophy, i.e. Advaita, Vishishta Advaita, and Dvaita. So that will open up discussions. And the reason why I have brought this here is our friend Yama has actually taken this as an important point, that it is the ignorance of the avidya that is prompting the jivas to take the route of prayers. And with that prayers, what are they doing? They are going through Nitya Samsara and are actually falling into the deep pits. So we need to understand this ignorance or avidya before we go towards the shreyas and use our intellect and discrimination. So what we will do next week is we'll pick it up from where we left. And, I got quite a few slides talking about this because it's a very, very important problem of Vedanta Darshana, to talk about ignorance. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and say Krishna Pranamastu, and we will take any questions or discussions or anything else that folks want to contribute, please. Pragnesh, yeah?
Just wanted to introduce my friend and eminent neurologist Sudhir Sah, whom I had invited with prior permission. So I just wanted to introduce Sudhir Sah. Is not only an eminent neurologist, but a very, very deep spiritual scholar.
Oh, that's very good. So Sudhir Shahji, welcome to our forum. Wonderful to see you from, I'm sure, I think Pragnesh ji had mentioned you before. So you're in Baroda, right?
I'm in Ahmedabad.
Ahmedabad. Okay, so we got another friend from Ahmedabad as well. Suresh Kankanwadi is also there in Ahmedabad. So welcome to our forum, and I hope you will find time to join us every Sunday.
Yeah, I will try to, because I have also some other classes on the same time, but some of the Sundays I will certainly join. I was really intrigued and I was really very happy. I felt elated with the whole discussion. I'm very thankful for allowing me to join this elite group. And thank you. It was my first day, so I just was trying to figure out what is what.
Yeah.
But I think it's a very, very interesting level of discussion. I'll be happy to participate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sudhirji. Thank you.
My specialty, because I'm a Jain, I have learned Jain philosophy at some more details. I have some idea of Vedic philosophy. Of course, that is a point where I would like to learn more from you all guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, on that note, anybody has any further questions, comments, please? Excellent. So if we don't have any further questions, I would kindly request you to read up about Ajnana and ignorance and why we are ignorant of what ignorance is. So please do some homework, go back to those Journey of Souls lectures and also pick up your own books of interest. Let's have an interesting debate and discussion about that next week as we make progress in second Valli of Katha Upanishad. Okay, so on that note,
Madhu, can I ask something?
Yes, Sheila.
Your last slide, explanation of Maya, says everything is Maya. Everything is ignorance, isn't it? God's Icha, Prakriti, I mean, creation.
Yeah. So that is one view, Sheila ji. We can have that discussion next week, I suppose. But if everything is Maya, then you and me sitting here is Maya. You telling me something is Maya. This laptop that I'm using is Maya. So then that becomes a complete waste of time. That's at least from where I look at it. So there has to be reality to things. So for example, Jain school of philosophy would resonate with the Visishta Advaita and Dvaita school of Vedic philosophy, where realism is very much in the prominence. So what you are saying is from a very Advait point of view, but that is something that we can discuss and understand. What are the pros and cons of, reality? Is ignorance a real entity, or is it an illusory entity? If it is an illusory entity, then why bother knowing about it? So these are all the discussions.
Who is illusory and what is the entity? That's
so all these things become important. So then if we don't accept, if for example we say ignorance is an illusion, why waste time knowing about something that actually does not exist? there's no point in having a philosophical discussion about it. It would be a view, an argument. So I would suggest that let's all do some homework, and we can
Yes.
maybe have that lively discussion in the next forums. And I want to start off with the interactive session next week, and then the following week will be Gita Chintana chapter 10. So I think the chapter 10 Gita Chintana, this time the turn goes to Stoke team. So I will send out some WhatsApp messages to the Stoke team, and I would request the Stoke team to take on chapter 10, please, in about fortnight's time. All right. So let's recite Om and close today's session. Om. Take care, everyone. See you next week. Bye now.
Thank you. Thank you.